What's going on YouTube? My name is Marcus, aka Apostle, and today we are gonna talk about some of these patch notes. I asked in my last videos if you guys would like to see this, and basically just got an overwhelming yes. So here we are doing it. Let me know if you guys do enjoy this and if I should continue this for future patches. If you do, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out the Twitch stream down in the description below, where I basically played Spellbreak every day. And if you decide you want to support me even more in the Epic Store, feel free to use my creator code in the top right corner up there, Apostle OG. You can enter it in for the promo code or in the Fortnite store or basically anywhere on Epic Games. But yeah, let's get into these patch notes. I don't know how to do this, so I'm just gonna read it. All right. So, hey breakers, welcome to CB 2.2 patch notes. This update is mostly focused around improving performance and making some adjustments to balance and gameplay. This not so much. I have played a little bit over the last 2 days. I think I put in like 12 hours. So I hope you're proud of me, Mom. Anyways, performance has seemed to be down a little bit, but that's to be expected when they add in new stuff. We'll get to that in a little bit. Game modes, duos is back and squad's been disabled for the time being. This has been super fun. Honestly, we haven't had duos for such a long time, and I think everybody's wanted duos. I feel like in every battle royale, duos feels like the way to play, whether it's Fortnite, Apex, anything. It's just duos. It's just so easy to communicate with one other person, and you could be so much more competitive even against like new players. It feels good. So I'm really happy duos is back. I'm sure they'll bring squads back pretty soon. They do have the announcement later today. I don't remember exactly what time it's at, but the IGN summer gaming thing is going on today, and Spellbreak's doing an announcement. If you don't feel like watching it, I will be streaming today, so check out the stream. You can ask what the announcement was in there if you don't see it, and I'll let you know. All right, let's move on. Gameplay. Movement. A frequently heard piece of feedback we've gotten is movement speed without boots is too slow. 100% true. You're like running with cement freaking blocks on your feet. We agree. So we're moving speed with and without boots a bit closer to one another. There's no change of speed if you're wearing boots between 2.2 and 2.1, but if you're not wearing boots, you'll move slightly faster than you did previously. Increased base movement speed by 1, decreased boot movement speeds by 1 across all rarities. So basically it's exactly the same if you're wearing boots, but they just made your non-boot wearing speed faster. So pretty simple. Feels good. Anytime they buff movement speed, it tends to feel pretty good across the board. So I'm happy they did this. I have been playing a lot of Frost though, so I can't give too much insight because I'm basically always running on Frost trails, which is like super fast. It's like 2 or 3 times max boot speed, so I don't have to deal with base movement speed a whole lot. For armor, most of our item scaling is logarithmic. That is to say, lower rarity power jumps up more than it does at higher rarities. So what this means, if you go from a gray to a green belt, it's going to jump up by a lot more than if you go from a purple to a legendary. Same thing with gauntlets. So basically, if you have, I'm just making up these numbers off the top of my head. If you have a common fire gauntlet and you go to an uncommon, so 1 step up, and say the common has 1, the uncommon's going to hit for 5, right? But if you go up to epic, say it hits for 8, going up to legendary is only going to make it hit for 9. So that's how it's always been with gauntlets, and that's how they were doing it with belts. Yeah, belts followed this as well. It meant low rarity belts were a huge leg up early game, especially as we now give you instant armor upon pickup. We're giving the same max armor, but making belts scale linearly to smooth out progression. So it's basically, this has been a belt nerf. Here's the numbers here if you're interested. Belts now give 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 max armor, change from 40, 60, 80, 90, 100. So it jumps up by 20 every time. But if you notice, the blue belt here is the same as the green belt here. So basically, to get up in health, you're gonna have to get up to the epic or legendary, which I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this. I think maybe they should have it jump by a little bit more, maybe like 5 armor more or something like that. That would kind of mess up your pots, but I'm not exactly sure how I feel yet. You can really melt people now because most people are going to be around this range. especially if they're like newer and they're not getting a lot of kills. It's harder to find higher tier loot just by looting. Usually you get all your good stuff by killing people because they drop all the best stuff they found, right? So most of the people are gonna have lower tiered armor, and it's gonna lower time to kill. So it's interesting. Hasn't really affected a whole lot, but we'll see how it feels in the future. For scrolls now continue to drop even when a player's talents are maxed out. This has a few effects. The ambient number of scrolls will increase since they'll drop even if someone can't use them. This allows someone with Finders Keepers to outfit their team in a much more impactful way over long matches. Finders Keepers, still trash. Don't ever take that talent. It's very bad. It's very, very bad. Don't take it. I can explain why. Basically, you're taking a talent that's gonna help you find scrolls, but you can also find scrolls for that talent. So it's just it just feels so useless. Most people get maxed out anyways pretty quickly, especially in duos. and squads it was a little bit worse, but it's just not a good talent. Don't take it. This as well, the ambient number of scrolls will increase. That means that Finders Keepers is even more useless because there's more scrolls on the map. So it's nice. You get up to max faster. So it's nice if you get up to max, but you can run into a lot of people who are really strong because more people are going to have more scrolls, so more buffs. Scroll drops no longer preferentially dropped for empty slots. What that means is before, say you had your first two talents maxed out, so your mind and your body. If you opened an epic chest, which is a guaranteed scroll, you'd basically be guaranteed a soul scroll, where now it'll drop any scroll because that's what they changed, is now there can be just more scrolls laying around because you can get stuff that you don't need. And then scrolls drop 100% of time from vaults. Vaults are about to get much spicier. This is a cool buff. I mean, doesn't really change a whole lot. Vaults have always been really good. Now they're a little bit better. Still, off drop, don't land on vaults. You're just gonna get killed by somebody who lands on a chest and then pushes the vault later. So fight, then get the vault. Same stuff. A bunch of talent changes. Escapist now increases your movement speed by 3, 4, 5, 7, up from 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, Escapist is when you get hit, your movement speed is increased. So they just buff this a little bit. I haven't had a chance to use this. I would imagine that it would make it a little bit more useful, especially in these higher tiers. Going from 5 to 7 is a pretty big jump. So now it's good. It's called Escapist because you're supposed to use it to get away, but there's a lot better ways to get away. You can also use it to close distance on people as you're pushing. So say someone's spraying at you with lightning, you can take a lightning shot, you'll get a boost and be able to get up to them real quick now because of this speed. Like I said, haven't had time to test it. Even if I was testing it, I'm mostly playing Frost, so Alacrity. Alacrity trails are just crazy speed. It's ridiculous. We'll get to that though. Focus mana now activates at 80% mana or higher instead of 100% higher, similar to the above, but unlocks some additional functionality with certain spells as well, since it's now possible to fire off multiple buff projectiles in a row, or if you're good with your mana sustain and fire rate, even more. So basically this makes focus mana a lot more useful. The big thing for me with focus mana was I like to jump and levitate a little bit into my shots, especially with like Frost. So as soon as you levitate, it starts using your mana and you lose your focused mana there. But now you have it up to 80%. So I'm assuming for like wind and lightning, you can get like 1 or 2 shots off with buff damage. And with Frost or anything else, you can levitate a little bit and get that extra little bit of height that you need and still get the damage buff out of it. So that's a cool buff to make focus mana more useful. It really was pretty useful to begin with, but it's a little more useful now. I've heard that it's pretty solid. I have yet to use it. I've just never been a fan of having to keep my mana high. I usually just go in and try to blow people up and don't really worry about lining up the first shot too much. But definitely if you are somebody who likes to sneak up on people with like Toxicologist or snipe people from a distance a lot, then this might be for you, and it could make it a little bit more useful on some other stuff. So yeah, definitely a good buff. Recovery's duration is increased from 12, 10, 8, 6 from 10, 9, 8, 5. To be clear, this is a nerf. It will now take longer to heal the same amount of health as before. Recovery sustain was often impossible to overcome in certain situations. True. Like if you had a lightning gauntlet before, you're not killing somebody with max recovery. You're just going to spray them down, run out of mana, and then they're going to be back up to like 175 health. By making it longer, we hope this will bring its power down enough so that combatants can break through the regeneration with steady pressure. I've noticed that I still struggle killing people with recovery. I'm not sure if it's recovery mixed with like a health pot going off or what, but it's still a little overtuned in my opinion. I still run recovery on pretty much every class. I think there's nothing really to take over it. Thirsty's good, but recovery is it just keeps you alive so much. Harmony cost increase from 2 to 3. Harmony is strong, but instead of lowering its power, we're increasing its cost to make the trade-off stricter and make for harder choices instead of beelining for the 2-2-2 build. This is a good thing. It breaks the ability for Stone Shapers to go the Harmony Fervor recovery build, which is basically easy mode because you just never die and be able to output a crazy amount of damage. So definitely like this one. It does spice up the builds a little bit, even though this next one, Runic Fluency cost reduced to 2 from 3. They switched spots. That's all that happened, and Runic Fluency is also really good, so still a lot of times you're beelining for the 2-2-2 build. I'm excited to see them bring more talents into the game. I feel like the game could really use that. It'll make metas better because there's more stuff to use, so you can mix it up a little bit better, whereas now it's like there's 2 useful talents in each area and you're just like, okay, well, I'm picking between these 2. So extra talents will be nice in the future, but that's to come. They've already said it. They've already said that that's it. So there's not a whole lot of change in the talent section. Still, 2-2-2, really good. You're just using Runic Fluency instead of Harmony. Elemental interactions. All flames now apply Ignite to enemies for 3 seconds. This is partially for consistency. If you see fire, it'll burn you, but also as a low-key buff to our friends in fire. Pyro needed a little bit of a buff. It wasn't the worst class. I'd say it was like B tier, but definitely needed a little bit of a buff. I would have liked for them to make it a little bit more exciting. We'll get into that when I go into Pyromancer. But all flames applying Ignite is kind of nice. It's basically, Pyro's just always been the class that's like, hey look, increased damage, yay. And personally, I think that's kind of boring. The only thing exciting about Pyro is Firefly, and there's so much better movement options that I just haven't really dabbled in Pyro a whole lot. Honestly, I would like them to, instead of every flame applying Ignite, for you to be able to Firefly off each flame and then have like a cooldown of some sort on it. I think that would be nice because you'd have a lot more mobility and you'd be able to just play around a lot more. That's my favorite part of Spellbreak, and a lot of people's favorite part. Just your movement and being able to dance around people and confuse people with your movement makes the fighting so fun, and having to keep track of everybody. It's like a big anime battle, so everybody's flying around and dashing everywhere, and I think a lot of classes, especially Pyro, where you're like a close to mid-range class, could really use that extra mobility to dance around people instead of just blow everybody up. But let's get into the actual changes to Pyro. Overall, Pyromancer's in a good spot. It wasn't too bad, I agree. People use it and enjoy it. It does well across the board. We wanted to make it a bit more rewarding though. Combust now additionally ignites target on direct hit. Once again, like I was saying, Pyro's just, hey, here's another damage buff. Not anything too exciting. We wanted to give a bonus to folks who are hitting their fireballs, and what a better way than with fire. I agree with that. I think that they should promote you hitting fireballs. As of right now, the class is pretty much based off of doing damage for missing your shots, because you have Combust, which is, it increases your radius of the splash, so you do damage if you miss. And then you have Conflag as the last one, which is, it makes the 4 fireballs blow up outside of the where your fireball hits and do more splash damage. So you're kind of getting rewarded for missing, and I don't know, I just don't think that's a good way to have a class, but It's a good beginner class. I mean, it's good at high levels too, but it's definitely a good entry-level class for people getting into the game. Flames left behind by fireballs are slightly higher to provide better cover from ice lance. This gives an additional layer of defense on a much faster cooldown than flame wall. Yeah, that's nice. I actually didn't even know this. I haven't read through these. I watched the patch notes stream and I was just skipping through it really fast because it was at 7:30 in the morning and I wasn't awake, so I just kind of skipped through everything and went through it real quick, but this is nice. I actually didn't know this. I think they should actually make the flame wall taller. I would like that for, I can't think of the name right now, Paralysis, the one that makes your flames stronger. I think it would be cool if it was also taller, and you can zone a lot better with it. So like right now, you throw down a firewall, all anybody has to do is shadow step or even just levitate right above it, and then it does nothing. So really, I think making them taller would be a lot better, again, to protect from ice lance. I just like the idea of walls in general. I think there should be a lot more defensive spells. If they made the flame wall taller, that would be better in my opinion. Personally, I think they kind of missed out on getting rid of conflag. Conflag's really, it's almost a nerf to your class. You end up doing more damage with the spawning stuff that comes out of the fireballs than helping you, because a lot of the times when you're fighting with pyro, you're pushing people really hard, so you're chasing, you're hitting them, and then those things pop out and then you run into them, or they pop out and then your fireball hits them and it blocks your shot. It's honestly, it's just not, it's not a good talent. It's really not. It can cause chaos, and that's about all it's good for, but if you're trying to be precise with your fireballs, it doesn't do that. It's bad. I like that Pyro got a buff. I don't really like exactly the direction that they buffed it with. I just played my first game of Pyro literally right before I was recording this. I dropped 12 kills and it felt like I needed to hit people 3 times to kill them. So it was pretty ridiculous if you ask me. Really, really strong. I'll probably post that gameplay. I'm not sure. We'll see if I get something better by the time I need a new video up. Moving on to Stone Shaper. I hate Stone Shaper. I don't like Stone. I don't, it's like, it feels really good to hit boulders. Boulders are one of the best things in this game, but just the auto attack of Stone, how strong it is, how impossible it is to kill Stone, it's still, even after these changes, I'm going to say it right now, it's still really strong and pretty frustrating to play against. And I think that goes back up to them not nerfing recovery enough, wherever it was. I don't know, I was going to highlight it, but if they nerfed recovery a little bit more, I think Stone Shaper would be in a better spot. It's just too much sustain, personally. I feel like recovery should maybe add 1 or 2 shots to your time to kill, but there's a lot of times where I'm hitting somebody and I'll hit them for like 30 or 40 each shot, and they'll have this much health and they'll just keep healing through it, and I'll have to hit them 3-4 more times before they die. If you can't pop them, they just keep going, and that's because recovery heals off the health that you recover, right? So if you take 50 damage, you're gonna recover 25 of it, and say while you're recovering that 25, you take another 10 damage, you're gonna heal another 5. So in total, you're gonna heal, what am I? Can I math? 30 damage. There you go. 25 plus 5. Good job, Marcus. It's hard to say with Stone. Personally, I think the hitbox is just messed up. You get hit a lot when you think you shouldn't. But that's a hard fix. That's a lot harder than changing numbers. I'm sure eventually they'll get it right. Stone Shaper is generally believed to be a very strong class. However, it doesn't get nearly the same amount of feedback other strong things do. This is in large because Stone Shaper isn't flashy. Agreed. Instead, their power lies in their tremendous sustain. Not always. I mean, the stone auto attack, especially if you have fervor, you can just blow people up with it. It's super punishing for like very little reason, especially if you're playing it right, which let's keep going, which can just whittle down their opponents while eschewing the need for armor shards almost entirely. Interesting choice of words. Don't think I've ever heard eschewing before, but we learn new things every day, right, chat? That's why we're here. With 2.2, that's going to be changing. Stone Skin now only gives armor if you're below 20 armor. I like this change. you can't just stand behind a tree and slam anymore and get all of your health back. Especially in like competitive areas, Stone Shapers would just carry armor to drop for their teammates because they would never need it. So Stone Shaper was just basically a backpack. It was a tank and a backpack. So this is nice because they are going to have to play a little bit smarter, especially like competitive wise towards the end zone where there's not a lot of loot. They're going to need to just not get blown up so much because they can't get everything back. This keeps most of the in-combat sustain of Stone Shaper, but drastically reduces their ability to disengage and reset. It also forces them to rely on armor shards like other classes. Yeah, solid. Stone Skin now passively gives plus 20 max armor, so it makes them a little more tanky. This is nice. This is a nice change. I would like them to have more health more than I would like them to recover health, because a big thing with anything is your time to kill, right? With any game where you're fighting people, you're gonna have an idea in your head how many shots it's gonna take to kill them. And what recovery does, and anything that like heals you back up, is it changes that time to kill. So you're gonna be pushing somebody, you're gonna hit them, you're gonna be like, okay, this next fireball is gonna hit them. You hit them, and then you go to turn around, and you're like, wait, they're still alive. So then you have to turn around again, and then you have to hit them again, and it just kind of throws everything off. It throws off your whole momentum and the whole feel of the game. So I like this because you can see how much armor people have. You know when your shots are gonna kill people. Whereas with recovery, it's like you don't really know if your shot's gonna finish them or not. Stone Skin previously was totally useless on drop until you found a belt. This fixes that, as well as provides some extra damage padding in the late game, allowing them to have higher armor of anyone in the game to somewhat offset the nerf. I think this is a solid change, honestly. Accretion and Avalanche now switch places. Accretion is now level 3 and Avalanche is now level 4. This is largely just a small quality of life change to make the progression smoother. So Accretion is when your boulders grow as they travel. Avalanche is when you get 2 boulders. Don't mind this change. I think it's pretty solid. Pretty cool. I think everything here is in a pretty good direction, and I think they did a good job of not just changing numbers. I think a lot of times you can get lost and just being like, oh, all they need to do is change the numbers, whereas they kind of reworked how the class works pretty well here, and I think went in an overall good direction. Most of my things that I still hate dying to stone. I just think that you get punished for being out of position way too easy with stone. I think something they can change is make it so you can't take 2 shots from stone as easy, maybe like time between shots. I think it should be something that you surprise people with, whereas people now can just literally spam stone and kill you and just completely rely on it. That's why I don't recommend it for new players, is because everybody just becomes reliant on stone, and they end up not playing well and not learning how to play the movement of the game, which is so much a Spellbreak. I think they need to change how the actual gauntlet itself works a little bit, as well as the hitboxes. Getting hit by random stuff sucks. So yeah. And then the rest, right? Recovery. Recovery is really what makes Stone Shaper feel impossible to kill a lot of the time. So in a good direction. I think it needs a few more changes, and Stone could be in a really good feeling spot where it doesn't feel so random and so cheese, I guess. It just feels very cheesy to play Stone. Toxicologist Outbreak's bonus damage has been reduced from 75 to 100. As a Toxic main, this is so needed. Outbreak does a crazy amount of damage for not a whole lot of skill. I mean, if you're able to double Outbreak people, that's pretty difficult with Shadow Step, but if you're running around with Invis and you hit somebody for double damage and basically they're just dead out of the gate because they didn't see you because you're invisible. Kind of a dumb way to play the game. This is nice. This makes it a lot less final, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like usually if you get hit by an Outbreak, you're like, oh god, I need to leave now because they just did all of my health in one shot when I didn't even see them. So this takes that a little bit back, and as well as the pyro changes, all these ignites break invis a lot, so getting outbreaks off is going to be harder. I think this probably puts Toxicologist in a good spot. I think it's still super top tier class, but just not super overpowered just because of the one outbreak talent that it has. All right, moving on to Conduit. This is where This is where it gets a little bit messy. I personally don't think Conduit needed to be changed. I think it was in a good spot. Maybe a small buff, but I feel like this whole change is just a little overdoing it. I feel like it didn't need this much. I feel like they could have just buffed something small and made it S tier. I think it was already pretty A tier. It had a really high skill ceiling. I was playing it in a lot of competitive matches and doing really well with it, as were a lot of top competitive players. It wasn't like an entry level class, which I don't really think everything should be, but there's a lot of fun little things you can do with it, and it's really fun to have to manage your rune charges and increases your mobility, and it was a fun class how it was, and I don't think they needed to mess with it as much as they did, but let's get into it. Significantly lowered amount of aim assist for lightning gauntlets. Thank you. I've heard from controller players that lightning's in a really good spot now as far as aim assist, so this is from people who don't use aim assist and have just tried it out, and that's good. I'm sure there's still going to be stuff, especially when a lot more top tier controller players come in. I think aim assist is going to need some more readjusting with lightning, and if you guys don't know, aim assist is different for each gauntlet. So the aim assist for lightning may be weaker than the aim assist for fire, and frost may be stronger, and it's different balances for each gauntlet that you're using. So there's definitely going to need to be more tweaks as time goes on, but definitely a good change, because aim assist was basically an aimbot a lot of times with the lightning gauntlet. Conduit's in an interesting place. The gauntlet itself, partially due to the auto aim, but also because of its behavior, is on the stronger end of things. We're taking this opportunity to hopefully boost up Conduit while leaving the gauntlet itself as a strong contender as well. Lightning bolt's basic behavior, regardless of cast, now continuously fires. It used to be a burst, now it's full auto basically. So this removes the main passive perk of the Conduit class, and they had to change it, obviously, so we'll get into that. To compensate for this change, and honestly to bring down its overall power level, the gauntlet has been weakened in the following ways. Lightning bolt now has a wind up, which is kind of interesting because they've talked about multiple times that they don't like wind ups because they feel weird. I don't mind it on lightning. I think lightning's basically hit scan, so having a wind up and having it kind of feel bad that way adds to the prediction that you need for lightning, I guess. Whereas like every other gauntlet you need to predict because its projectile moves so slow. The wind up will kind of add that to lightning, at least for the first shot. Fire rate for lightning was slowed, so it shoots slower. Instead of shooting at this rate, it now shoots at this. That's the best way I can explain it. It's just slower time between shots. This is nice as well. It'll make it feel like you can escape it a little bit better. Minimum damage for lightning bolt is now lower, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9 from 7, 7, 8, 8, 8. Also, not a bad change, small. This is where everybody's kind of freaking out. Potential energy now grants +1 damage for each successive bolt fired, maxing out at +10 until you stop casting. This is weird because it's each successive bolt fired. So whether you hit somebody or not, your gauntlet's going to get stronger. If you guys don't know, Conduit has an ability that when you lightning strike, it'll give you max mana, so they can literally cast their lightning strike, sit and shoot a tree for their first 5 bolts, and then just pop out and start wrecking you, just start absolutely shredding you. So you're like, say you're at max damage, you're hitting for 19, 20, and then if you're using focus mana where you have the full mana the whole time, then you're hitting for in the 20s for pretty much the easiest gauntlet to hit in the game. So it just doesn't even feel fun to play. I played one game and I was like, it doesn't feel good. Like I enjoyed playing Conduit before and I just wasn't a fan of this. I wouldn't be surprised if they revert this, or change the numbers, or just change. They're not going to revert it. They never revert anything, so don't get your hopes up for that. But change it to be more balanced. I think that this change with the whole making the gauntlet always automatic can be doable. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know, I just kind of liked it as a burst, as an offhand. I don't think it needed to be automatic. I think it still got the job done, and then picking Conduit gave a good buff to the gauntlet. So I think it was good how it was, but I don't think that this is absolutely terrible. I mean, this isn't great. They can change this, but I don't think it's absolutely a terrible change. I think they can make it feel balanced and make it feel good, but I think it was just a little overdoing it for how good the class already was. Secondary strike, this is also something that I don't necessarily agree with. Increase number of strikes to 5 and reduce delay between strikes from to 0.6, previously 1, so it's almost half a second. It's almost half the speed, or twice the speed. I don't think this was needed. I think secondary strike was really good, like final zones, especially in a competitive sense, to delay area, right? Like, say you're in a small circle here. I don't have something to draw on. All right, let's do this. Let's do some multivitamins. Say you're here, right? You're right here. There's people coming to rotate this way. You can throw a secondary strike in between you and then they have to go through the middle, which is bad because everybody's gonna focus on the middle, right? So it was really good at denying area and preventing people from pushing where you didn't want them to push. Whereas now it's just kind of like, hey, I'm doing more damage, right? Because they up the strikes, but the overall time that it's out is down, because obviously it's twice as fast, so you need twice as many strikes to get the same amount of time. So you're not delaying that area. It's just kind of become another damage output, which I don't think is super great. I think the stun was really a good part of that in the area denial, and I think it was a strong in general, and it didn't. I don't know. I don't like this change. We'll see how it feels. I haven't messed around with it too much, but I like Conduit where it was. I really did. And I've never been one to like advocate for Conduit. It's always been a hated class in Spellbreak, and I think it's not that fun to die to, but I think it was in a good spot to where it felt the funnest to play that it's ever felt to me, and also the least bad to die to before they changed it. So I just don't think it needed to be touched. We'll see where it goes in the future. Not complaining too much. I think Proletariat will figure it out. All right, moving on to my favorite thing. I never played Frostborn, at least since the dual class system just wasn't really good ever. Basically, since they switched to the single class system, there was no reason to play Frostborn. Frostborn is one of the weaker classes. It was the weakest by far, but it's attached to a very strong gauntlet. True. We're buffing Frostborn in a number of non-damaging ways, and that is to help its representation amongst the other classes. Increase ice skating speed to 24 from 22 for all characters. So enemy, friendly, yourself, you're all going fast, and this is a good speed. It feels like you're moving quickly. Like before you were moving quickly, but you were not moving that quickly. Now it's like, I think this is a solid speed for you to move on the ice. Now this is the fun one. Frostborn acceleration on ice increased 150%. So basically now you touch the ice as a Frostborn, and you were moving immediately. So you can have one spot of ice, you can hit it, and you could jump, and it's almost like a dash feeling. You're just like, you're zooming all over the place because of this here. Reduced amount of air friction, so you keep your momentum way more when you jump off the ice puddle now. So now you just have so much movement, and I just think it feels so good. It feels so good. If you haven't played Frostborn and gotten creative with how you use your frost puddles, just play around and try to be on the frost puddles the whole time and move around during a fight, and you'll see that it's super fun. Also, increased duration of ice puddles, 7 to 5 seconds. This is nice. I don't know if you've ever followed somebody playing Frostborn, but pretty much any time if you were their teammate, the frost trail would melt while you're halfway through it and you'd be stuck. So this helps be a little bit more useful to teammates. Also, it gives enemies more time to close distance, but this acceleration really helps you get away anyways. And then reduced ice prism overcharge for duration. It's half a second instead of a second. This is really nice because ice prism's the last talent you get. If you guys don't know, it's once you charge up your bow all the way, it'll charge up even more once this is unlocked. And in the final circle, once you get down to the point that you've unlocked this, the circle's so small that standing still for a second, you're gonna get wrecked. So you're able to use it in combat way more. It's way stronger. It feels really good. I think the only thing they could use to change now is the sorcery. The Frost Gauntlet sorcery has been like the weakest for a while, and I've always wanted more like defensive abilities, and I think it would be cool because right now it's a donut shape, right? So you're here. If fireballs are coming in here, it's getting blocked, but if they're coming in from an angle from the top, they're coming in and hitting you. It's also better now, less people are running Harmony, so you can actually freeze people, which is good. But I think if it was more of like a dome shape and you can break the sorcery, I think that would be really cool. I don't know, I just think the sorcery still is kind of lackluster, and I think if they fix that, that Frost would be in a great spot. Alright, moving on to Tempest. Squall now increases spell damage by 20% and provides 10% incoming damage reduction after 1 second of being in the air. It no longer scales with time spent. This is interesting. This actually kind of buffs your offhand gauntlet. Basically, before it was if you were in the air for 1 second, you'd get a 10% boost. 2 seconds, you'd get 20. 3 seconds, you get 30. So it's a nerf and a buff. But basically, being in the air is always bad, so you don't have to be in the air as much with Tempest to get the damage benefit of Squall. So I think this is definitely a good change. Damage reduction is also nice because once you're in the air, you're basically a free shot from ice or lightning. So a little bit more sustain. Squall was hard to use well. You had to spend a lot of time in the air, which cost mana, cooldowns, or using the map very well. Furthermore, once you were up there, you were often a prime target. This update to Squall wants to help both of those things. A flat bonus after 1 second makes it easier to use and more accessible while providing some much needed defense. Yeah. Increased radius around tornado that triggers updraft. That's huge. I don't know if any of you guys play Tempest, but I've had like half the times I would try to updraft, which is when you go in the tornado and it makes you jump up. I would throw down the tornado and it wouldn't launch me up, so I would end up stuck there and probably getting hit by my own tornado because usually people are shooting at you. So this feels really good, much more consistent, and overall a good change. Increased secondary bounce from updraft by 50%. So now you can jump on the tornado twice and go up higher. That's also good. You can use it to like move around, like you can kind of kite people back and forth in your tornado, and overall pretty solid. Whirlwind casting animation is 33% faster, so you can throw your tornado down faster and get up in the air faster. All good changes. Been thinking a lot about Tempest lately. It's in a tough spot because, like I was saying, as soon as you're in the air, you're in a bad spot. You're giving up all your cover as soon as you go up in the air, almost guaranteed. You're just giving up any hiding spot, any advantage of the map that was around you once you go in the air. This, when you do that against like good players, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get hit by ice. You're gonna get hit by lightning, fireballs. Even it's just wind. You're just taking damage when you go up in the air. So Tempest is in an interesting spot where it's like you have to give up your positioning for increased damage, and it's almost never worth it. I'm not sure how they would fix it. I mean, everybody says it's too floaty, so when you use your wind jump, you actually fall slower than if you were to just regularly jump, and that makes you easier to hit. So getting rid of that floatiness would help, but I don't think it would solve the entire problem. I was thinking earlier, if you can hit your wind shears on the wall, like so horizontal. So right now you hit it and you have to hit the wall 2 or 3 times, and then once you stop hitting it, you immediately start air braking. So you speed up really fast and then you slow down. I think if they removed that air brake or slowed it down a significant amount, that you can actually use the horizontal momentum to just keep you moving around the map and make you harder to hit while you're in the air. Because if you're giving up your cover, you're gonna need some way to dodge. So it just doesn't have that outside of rune charges, and it's not that great right now. Even with this is better, definitely a good improvement, but something needs to be addressed with how easy you are to hit in the air for Tempest to be viable, especially at the top levels. That's the big stuff, but we can get into more stuff. Party management, a new icon appears in your friends tab when you have a party invitation, added controller support for forming and joining parties. Good stuff, can't complain. Art changes, new lightning storm VFX. This is underrated. This is one of the best things. You're not going to strike yourself as much, and you're not going to get struck as much because you can see the animation of the storm now around you. I like this a lot. New deciduous trees, I think that's how you say that. These are kind of cool. This is part of the reason that FPS has kind of gone down a little bit for a lot of people, because there's a lot of this new tree which probably isn't completely optimized, and improved visuals for distant geometry, which can also do it. Anytime they change art stuff, there's almost always going to be FPS drops. But I mean, I haven't had a terrible time with it, but I've got a decently high-end computer. They'll get to the optimizations a little bit better, and hopefully if they address the conduit changes, they can do a little bit more optimizations as well, because they did that last patch and it actually really helped a lot. So hopefully a hotfix is coming. Optimization for spline mesh rendering. I don't really know what any of this stuff means, I'm not gonna lie to you. Tree rendering has been optimized, load times have been optimized, shader optimizations reduce GPU memory bandwidth, memory optimizations reduce duplicate shaders and memories, adjustments to quality levels increase performance on low/medium quality. I mean, try to make the game run smoother. That's what that means. So they added stuff in that's going to slow down optimization, and then they did a bunch of stuff to speed up optimization. I think overall, it's kind of unanimous that it's been worse optimization since this patch. But personally, it hasn't been a whole lot for me. But I've heard on PS4 it's not so great. So hopefully a hotfix will fix that. Miscellaneous set default zoom sensitivity scale to 20. This is good because it used to be on 100, which means that as you zoomed in with ice, it would get super squirrely. So it's like now when you zoom in, it'll be a little bit more, a little smoother off of default. So when new players come in, it'll help them with ice. Bug fixes: fix permafrost freezing timer not resetting when the character escapes its proximity. That's good, so you don't get frozen multiple times. Fix misplaced colliders that prevented players from using the doors. Perfect. Squall's FX should now show when it's active again, so you can see when you have your squall buff, and you can no longer ice skate while crouched. I didn't even know this was a thing, so oops. Overall, I think this patch is in a pretty good direction. If you've been around the community for a while, you know every time a patch drops, there's something in there that people freak out about. This time it's conduit. Last time it was wind. There's always something that people think is going to destroy the game. I think this is overall pretty good direction. There's going to need some tuning. I would be surprised if we don't see a hotfix for some of this stuff. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as Twitch. Check out the Twitch stream down in the description below. Let me know what you think about this patch. Anyways, I'll see you guys out in the HoloLens. Thanks for watching.